Union Budget. It is not just only the annual financial statement or estimated expenditure receipt, but it is a sign of hope for the people of India. Hope for development, hope for relief, hope for better life. But are these hope fulfilled? Welcome to our show Unveil for Decoding Budget 2016. Today we have Abhay, an economist, economic journalist and an analyst. So, sir, this is BJP government's second full-fledged budget.
True.
So, how would you evaluate the present budget on the backdrop of Economic Survey 2015 and 16?
See, Virat, there is a specific logic behind the whole schedule. Why Economic Survey pertaining to the previous financial year, why it is submitted or presented on the floor of the Parliament on the previous day of the budget, there is a reason. The reason being, the budget for the ensuing financial year has to be viewed on the background of the economic backdrop that is prevalent in the country. So, the Economic Survey tries to portray the current economic reality, which provides the necessary framework. Now, if you look at this year's budget, the answer to your question is partially yes and partially no. The reason being, see, one of the major landmarks of this budget is that there is a massive allocation towards agriculture and rural development.
Yes.
That very well fits into economic reality that is prevalent today, because the country is now undergoing a serious rural distress. However, if you look at the other provisions, namely, see, we need to invest substantial amounts of funds for upgrading our manpower. So, financial allocation for imparting skill education, for vocational training, for professional training, that way it is meager. So, I would say that the Economic Survey and the background is partially reflected in this year's budget.
But BJP government is always been accused of a suit boot ki sarkar.
True, yeah.
Do you think this budget, in this budget, they tried to wipe out that slate?
I would say, I do not really agree with you in one respect. That, see, suit boot ki sarkar, it's an image, I think, that has been imbibed by masses on a large scale.
Yes.
But see, that is bound to happen. Ultimately, we are working in a political economy setup, right? Yes. The corporate India has huge expectations from this budget and from this government. So, those expectations are bound to be reflected in the budgetary provisions. But now I think this government has shown an extremely mature response to the current economic scenario, where it is the agricultural sector that needs a great fillip. So, in a way, if you look at the budget allocations, you see that there is a very conscious decision to focus primarily on rural India and move away from the image of suit boot ki sarkar.
Yes, they have allocated a lot of money.
Yes.
But still, they have agreed to double the income of the farmers in next 5 years. Growth rate of agriculture in India is around 1%.
Yeah.
And it was in 2013-14, it was at the maximum at the time of Sharad Pawar.
Yeah.
But they had decided to give it in next 5 years, they are going to double it. So, how do you think they are going to achieve it?
See, Virat, we shouldn't be unfair to the government or to the Honorable Finance Minister. For if you look at the exact...
Their intention may be good.
That is correct. No, what I am saying is, if you look at the exact wording as it appears in the speech of the Honorable Finance Minister, what they say is that they are going to focus on doubling the farm income in next 5 years. So, it's not that it's a kind of a commitment or a vision. What they think is that, looking at the current economic scenario, unless there is a demand and sustained demand from rural areas, we will not be able to maintain the tempo of economic growth. So, it is in a way a vision that the government has now sounded in its budget statement. Yes. What I think is, in reality, that is going to be really a gigantic task. Because see, the kind of agricultural problems we are facing, stunted irrigation, lack of extension services, increased cost of production, the very stagnant and low yields. So, this appears to be a huge challenge, really. If we could achieve that, nothing like it. But See, in a way that, see, we should not forget that budget is also a political statement, right? So, in order to provide some kind of a hope, a ray of hope to rural India, probably the government has set a goal that maybe in next 5 years, all the policies will be striving towards doubling income of an average farmer.
Yes. But what about the middle class? Middle class, it seemed to be the most upset class in this budget. Last year it was Swachh Bharat cess. This year it is Krishi Kalyan cess. Is it fair to load consumers with such much of a burden?
If you ask me, I don't think that there is anything. There is rather, I would put it this way, that there is again some kind of economic logic in this. See, if you take a slightly historical review, you will see that this is the 25th year of reform process. We began our reforms in 1991. Today we are in 2016. Now, right from the beginning, it is the middle class in our country who has been the major beneficiary of economic reform process, right? So now I think it's a time that this class also should be now asked to do a little sacrifice towards larger good. So I don't think that there is any reason really for the middle class to get frustrated because of this shift towards rural India.
Okay. Let's take a short break and stay tuned. We will be right back on our topic Budget 2016. Welcome back to our show Unveil for Decoding Budget 2016. We will continue our discussion with Mr. Abhay Tilak. Sir, what do you think about the government's announcement in the present budget of allowing 100% FDI in the food processing sector?
I would say this is one of the welcome steps of the budget, because see, we earnestly need FDI, that is foreign direct investment, because if you look at the current statistics, our domestic savings and investment rate has dropped significantly.
Yes.
Secondly, direct investment in foreign direct investment in the food processing sector would provide lot of support to the ultimately farm economy. Because see, there is always a gross estimate that about 30% of the farm produce gets wasted because of lack of proper connectivity between the producer and the consumer. So if this FDI can be diverted towards establishing manufacturing or processing units in the rural areas, we will achieve 3 targets. First, there will be value addition in the farm produce. So farmers' income will increase. That will provide necessary backup purchasing power in the rural areas. 2, it will create good quality employment in the non-agricultural sector of the rural India. And third and most important fallout and positive fallout of this would be, it would arrest migration from rural areas to urban cities. So I think that's really a welcome step, and we should wholeheartedly look forward to receiving massive doses of FDI in the food processing sector. Yeah.
What about Manrega? On one hand, PM Narendra Modi criticized that Manrega is emblem of Congress party's failure. But on the other hand, financial minister of the same government is allocating so much amount of money. Isn't it paradox?
I won't say it's a paradox. I would say that this is a part of our political economy. Please remember, see, the way I look at Honorable Prime Minister's statement, probably what he was hinting at is, even after 60 years of independence, if we are in a way compelled to create schemes like Manrega, it in a way reflects a failure of our whole planning process, that we have not been able to create good quality jobs in the non-agricultural sector, particularly for rural masses. So we have to continue with these kind of programs. So I think it is not directed towards a particular party or a particular scheme.
From last 60 years, Congress party was in the power.
That's what I'm saying. See, that is why let's not get entangled into the specifics of party politics or a scheme. What I think is, look at the other side. See, we have a massive problem of providing good employment opportunities, particularly in rural areas, right? Secondly, with economic restructuring, income gaps are widening. So we need consumption support for basically rural masses. I think Manarega exactly serves this dual purpose, right? So the apparent paradox that we seem to be seeing, that the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister on the one side criticizes government, the scheme, the Finance Minister allocates more funds. I think it's a kind of a balancing act, that you need real boosting up of rural demand. So you need to supplement rural farm incomes by the off-farm activities. That's exactly what Narega aims at.
Yes. Black money was the star issue of Modi government's election campaign. And this year, as Rahul Gandhi poetically put, Fair and Lovely Yojana for turning black money into white. But isn't it a form of amnesty?
In a way, yes. See, it's very romantic to talk about black money and all kind of grandiose propositions, promises that black money which has been stacked outside country, that will be brought in, and if really we are able to bring all the black money in the country, and if it is deposited in everybody's account, then probably everybody gets 15,000. What I am saying is, it's wrong to imagine that black money is something which has been physically stacked somewhere. See, it is a wrong concept. See, essentially, what is the black money? It's a money which has avoided taxes. Right? And nobody can afford to really hold black money in the form of hard cash which has been stacked inside some remote place. It is a money which is always in circulation. So what we call the money laundering, really a black money gets converted into a white money. So it's a to and fro, actually a traffic, that part of the time the same money circulates in the economy as a black money. Some part of the time it is treated as a part of the formal system. So what I'm saying is, the kind of tax reforms that we are aiming at, whether it is direct taxes code or whether it is GST, I think it will tackle this menace of black money to a large extent. So what I think is, we should be able to segregate these two components, the political rhetoric and the economic reality. But overall, I think our march towards tax reforms will take care of a large part of the black money problem.
Yes, thank you. Crude oil is down to $35 per barrel.
Yes.
But still there is no change, or there is no relishment to the people, for common people. Why is that?
See, I think the reason has to be again sought into the current economic situation. See, we are confronted with a risk of running heavy fiscal deficits. Right? Now, I think if you look at the price movements of the crude oil between 2014 and 2016, there is almost a 55% fall in the international prices of the crude oil. What I think is, this is a temporary phenomenon, right? But what government has done is, rather than passing on the benefit of reduced prices directly onto the consumer, government is trying to use that bounty to support fiscal deficit, right? So what government has done is, government has not reduced the tax burden on imported oil. So government is garnering resources by not passing on the benefit of lower prices to the consumers. In a way, government is again doing its duty, because with heavy fiscal deficits, you run fear of heavy inflation. So I don't think that there is any lack of logic in it.
Narendra Modi, in his when the Delhi elections were there, he said we are the beneficiaries of crude oil's low prices, and he promised people that they will get some concessions in taxes and all. But still now also BJP government is a beneficiary of crude
Low
oils,
prices, yeah.
low prices, but still they are the no middle class is upset one.
See, I don't think that, again, see, who is the middle class? It is basically people who use cars, right? Now,
Yes.
most of the cars now have been now shifted to diesel, which use diesel as a
Diesel,
major
diesel.
fuel. Now, I really believe that in case we want this particular model of development, I think some fuel price rise has to be accepted by all of us. See, the ideal case is we should go for a massive development of road transport or public transport. Unless we till such time that we don't do this, we will have to rely on private transport, and then the entire middle class is a beneficiary of organized sector employment.
Yes.
So they get hefty increases every year because their salaries are linked with consumer price index. So I don't think why should they complain about this. They should be able to, if you want a car, you better pay for it.
Let's take a short break and stay tuned. We will be right back on our topic Budget 2016. Welcome back to Unveil for Decoding Budget 2016. Today we have Mr. Abhay Tilak, a prominent journalist, economic journalist from Pune. We talked about many of the government schemes.
True, yeah.
But what about Make in India? Rahul Gandhi mocked PM Modi over Make in India. What is your stand about it?
I think as it stands today, it's a big slogan, right? However, making in India, converting it into a reality is going to be a humongous challenge, right?
Yes.
See, there is no doubt that the focus of Make in India is extremely rational, right? It very well fits into current requirements of the country as well as of the Indian economy.
Okay.
That we need to create good quality jobs in the manufacturing sector, right? So we are basically a service driven economy,
Yes.
but we need huge number of fresh jobs, good quality
Platforms.
jobs, yeah. So Make in India is a slogan in that direction, right? So we want India to become now a manufacturing hub for the entire globe, probably. So I won't say that we aspire to replace China, but that is a good vision, let's say. However, unless the government really invests adequate amount of resources in creating infrastructure, basically power, roads, good connectivity, and investing adequate funds for creating a pool of vocationally or technically trained skilled manpower, converting this slogan of Make in India into a day-to-day life reality would be a very, very difficult proposition, right? So what I suggest, what I think is, the slogan has to be supported with concrete action on ground. If we could do this,
Yes.
then there will be the country will get transformed.
As every year almost 10 lakh students get pass out, and it is a good platform for them to get jobs. Make in India. Sir, as you brought China is India's arch rival, and their defense budget is 3 times bigger, much more than India's. As an economist, how will you see about it?
So this time I think everybody was taken by great surprise that the Honorable Finance Minister did not even utter a word defense in his about 90 minutes long budget speech. And, if you go into the details of the speech, you see that there is an allocation. For
But
the
it is
defense.
just a small allocation.
That is true, that is true. See, whereas what I think is more than the allocation, what matters is effective efficiency
Yes.
of spending the defense budget. See, so far our experience has been that we keep on allocating huge funds. However, the procurement process is fraught with so many shortcomings that actually at the end of the year, barely 50% of budget expenditure gets spent actually. So, looking at China, what I think is what we need to do is step up our efficiency of
Yes.
expenditure,
Expenditure.
basically streamline procurement, invoke more participation of the domestic or private sector
Yes.
in manufacturing defense equipment, and see to it that money which is allocated for defense is actually spent in a meaningful manner.
Yes. Sir, let's come to the end of our session. My last question to is, before this budget was presented, a lot of talk was about fiscal deficit. What are your views of targeting fiscal budget?
See, we need some kind of a targeting for fiscal deficit, because see, you cannot run an economy with ever widening gap, right? See, there's a school of thought currently which has now become extremely vocal, which says that it doesn't matter, even if you increase budget deficit, government has theoretically huge power to create resources. But we must not forget one thing, that if you increase budget deficit, a fiscal deficit, it ultimately leads to an imposition of a tax on each and every citizen, namely inflation. See, inflation is a uniform tax. It hurts rich as well as poor equally. Higher the fiscal deficit, higher is the inflation.
Yes.
So, looking at this, and inflation then just affects all our projections regarding our future movement. So, what I think is, if we have to balance the whole picture, that whether you run heavy deficits, allow inflation to go unchecked, and then you expect RBI to control inflation. Now, keeping in view this dilemma, I think this budgets and this year's the approach of the government to stick to fiscal deficit targets is a most soothing and welcome feature.
As emerged from the interaction, we have came to know that Arun Jaitley, Finance Minister, has done a commendable job with a clear view of future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you on this show. Thank you for sharing your views. We will meet you at the next episode of Unveil with new guest and new topic to discuss. Thank you.